The Fed meets next week, and there are some signs that they may consider changing how they talk about interest rates. Not actually talking or changing those interest rates, but talking about when to talk about raising them. But with Europe slumping into a recession and the U.S. economy continuing to, on balance, improve, has the Fed basically silenced its critics? Cody Willard is a MarketWatch contributor, a frequent TV analyst, and CEO of Scutify.com, and he does not think so at all. Why? Hasn't the Fed, sort of won? They've kept us out of a recession while Europe has slumped?
I would say the working American person has kept us out of the recession. The Fed did nothing but transfer wealth from people that would have bought banks when they went bankrupt in 2008 as that real financial crisis hit, and they still continue to 0% interest rates is a straight form of welfare for the giant corporations and specifically the too big to fail banks.
And for those who own stocks.
And their shareholders.
For the shareholders who own stocks.
The shareholders of those stocks.
This asset bubble that we keep hearing about.
I call it the biggest bubble-blowing bull market in history, and that's not necessarily saying that we're already about to pop or something. I do think the 0% interest rates that we have seen from the Federal Reserve is blowing up bubbles as both it helps the corporations borrow cheaper than they otherwise could have, borrowing, frankly, from our grandchildren.
Do you think, though, that the Fed is going to start having a conversation about interest rates, which we keep hearing, where they're, quote, changing the language of their approach? And I don't know what that means, by the way, because nobody can understand what they write to begin with.
It's all, no, and in the end, you need to just look at the facts themselves. They can talk and propagandize all they want, but the fact is 0% interest rates are forcing the retirees and the responsible savers into riskier assets, and you're seeing them buy stocks, and you are seeing them take more risk than they otherwise would have, and you're seeing a bubble blow up in front of you.
Okay, so what then does the Fed have to do? I mean, it's going to end its asset purchase program.
The QE, right?
That's going to come to an end. When is it going to start looking at interest rates? Because we have inflation, all right? And they're kind of looking at, everybody knows we have inflation. They're sort of in a sort of agreed upon fantasy land. But at some point, they have to do something.
At some point, they have to at least stop doing, like you're saying, the asset purchases, the quantitative easing, and that is basically 0% interest rates on steroids. I mean, it's negative interest rates in some ways that you look at it. It's beside the point, though. You go back to 1999, and people freaked out because Alan Greenspan took that dot-com bubble to the next level by dropping rates to 1%. We're now in year 5 of 0% interest rates. It's unprecedented. This bubble-blowing momentum that is out there in the economy is continuing.
So what do you think they're going to say next week, and what are they going to do?
They'll say a bunch of stuff about how they'll have to start ending QE sooner rather than later, and they'll have to start at raising interest rates at some point. I would expect the stock market and the traders actually glom onto that, freak out a little bit. You get a little bit of a pullback in the stock market. The fact is that 0% interest rates is the most important part, and anything below 2 or 3% interest rates is still fueling a bubble, and that is not going away.
But we
in the
haven't
next
gotten
2 or 3
the inflation
years.
component, at least they say.
They say, right, but you go buy yourself some milk, you go to the gas station, you go do anything you got, and it's up. The prices are up. And not only that, you look at the McDonald's or the fast food places that are continuing to keep prices low. Well, go look at how their supply that they're putting in their beef itself, the bread, those components, the prices would otherwise have been rising, but they're substituting.
Well, they have their own.
Beef.
They have their own separate sort of index that they look at on inflation.
The Federal Reserve does, yes. But you actually go buy yourself a burger and you're getting worse meat, and it's costing you more to get a
most Americans are not getting paid more either.
Correct, and that's not. I do think that employment has finally caught some traction. I do think you'll see some rising wages in the near term in the next few months. You'll finally see some of the trickle down that they've been talking about for 5 years hit the main street. It's not nearly enough, and it's not going to really help the average Joe.
Cody Willard, good to have you here in the studio, by the way.
It's great to finally
nice
see
to talk to you on the
face.
phone, but we like to have you here as well.
Thank you. It's great.
Thank you for stopping by. Coming up, why the falling price of oil may mean tough times ahead for the global economy. You're watching Arise Exchange.